Stephen Hawking stole that dude's wife, and she was awful to him. So it got him back. She was like wildly abusive and stuff. I guess she would like
walk out of the room during a fight and unplug the thing.
I think she would also like maybe hit him sometimes, and
with
sometimes
a newspaper?
like threaten to drown.
Entropy is the fundamental fate of the entire cosmos.
Shut up. The universe is going to expand forever, old man.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
and
everyone.
Welcome to Mind Under Matter, the only show where the hosts don't
simultaneously
discuss how to intro, and so they sometimes simultaneously intro. Today, we're talking about on Mum. We're talking about We're talking about ADHD. Where, by the way, little disclaimer, not so if you listen to the personality episodes, there's so much fun. We made a second one, but we went through some personality tests and talked about personality research and some of the history of personality research. And personality research is an area that I feel a little more comfortable talking about, a little more in my wheelhouse. ADHD stuff, not so much. I've had like one full episode on Here We Are about it. It was years ago. It's weird because I have what is probably, when we take this test, will reveal pretty severe ADHD if it's anything like the last time I took one.
Oh,
and I just
cool. We're
haven't
taking the
looked
test.
into it that much. Yeah. And so anyway, because of the, also there's a little higher stakes because I don't want someone that has ADHD or that knows someone with ADHD to take something that I say too much to heart, because I'm going to mostly be grasping at straws, searching through my mind for every little thing about ADHD that I know.
It's what we do.
Much of it, I'm sure, is confused and backwards, and I'm not remembering it right. And there's new research and everything else. So don't exactly take my word for it.
The best part, though, is that if we upset some people, like, they're not going to stay on us for too long.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean,
there's other people that would distract them, and then they would get upset at them, and then we're clean.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's
get distracted in a hurry. I see. There's also the other thing that I enjoy is that on our YouTube channel, a lot of times people do comment when we get something a little bit off, or not just have something off, but people have their own ideas about things that they want more of us to explore in more depth in future episodes, or just related topics, books that they've read on the topics. And so there's sometimes some cool YouTube comments and stuff that keeps the conversation going, which we absolutely encourage.
Yeah, always correct our asses.
Yeah, definitely.
But also give a thumb up. Instead of raising your hand to correct us, give the video a thumb up, saying, I've got a question.
And hit that subscribe button too. By the way, we now have just enough subscribers, 1,000 subscribers, probably by the time that this is coming out, that we're running that YouTube will start putting ads, and we could opt out of it. But the thing is, so we're not making money off these dumb YouTube ads. They pay like cents for like thousands of things, but they're necessary. You know, we don't have, if you're listening to the audio version, if you're listening on any app, we don't have any ads. We don't do ad reads. We're supported by Patreon members. But the reason why YouTube needs to have ads is because if YouTube doesn't have skin in the game, they just won't recommend your videos to anybody else. So it's just a necessary, there's nothing that can be done about it. We have to have ads on there. Otherwise,
it's not for us.
Just less people
won't. It's not
won't.
for the money.
I wish it was for the money.
For the good of the world.
It's for the good of the world.
Yeah.
I do wish it was for the money, but literally there is no money to be made off of YouTube until you're getting like 1 million views of
I
video
think
or
there's
something
no
like
money
that.
to be made anywhere anymore, actually. Like, this might be a controversial stance, but I think it'll prove to be correct in the next 4 years. Like, they're going to discover, like, there's
4
no
years.
way to make money anymore. No one can make it. Unless you're Kanye or, I don't know, Lizzo, or why am I singling out music artists, or Elon, then you can make money. But that's about it. Just 3 people.
I wonder how much there. I mean, you can barely blame people for glamming on to, like, you know, jumping on whatever bandwagon just because life is short and full of endless choices, and it helps to have suggestions from other people. And so you have this kind of groupthink dynamic that clicks in, like, all right, I don't need to sit around every day trying to discover a new band, which is also awesome to do, but you can just listen to it. You can just be like, oh, I heard of these people. They permeate through the culture, and then you give it a listen, and it's curated a little bit. But I do wonder how much artists are still going to be able to. I'm not even sure that actors and musicians, even huge musicians and everything else, I'm not sure they're even going to be making the money that they
I think
used
it's a
to.
standard bell curve, maybe, or maybe that's not the right curve. What's the one that just shoots up at the end? Because there's always money to be made, contrary to my other point, but it's going to be like the top 2% of people releasing music are going to actually see dividends, and then the rest are just struggling. But the counter side to that is that it's easier than ever to make good sounding music. Like, the tools we have are insane to get it out there, but people don't buy records anymore. People don't even buy songs anymore. Streaming services pay you a penny for every 6 billion streams, and most of the time that gets lost in the system anyway, so they don't even pay you that.
I mean, there's people making fun sketches in, you know, probably what takes them an hour or two's time of actually like filming, editing, putting it together, shooting the thing, and putting it out, that are better than, you know, Saturday Night Live sketches from 30, 40 years ago, or whatever, or however long it's been around.
The original ones were pretty rough. I know people say SNL sucks today, but the original ones also, there's stinkers in every season.
Yeah. There was, I liked Will Ferrell, but other than that, and man, I swear I'm not saying this to be cool, but I just have distinct that I don't care for SNL, which I haven't even watched in years, because why would I abuse myself? Like I've tried so many times.
There are great sketches every season and great people every season, but it's just, I was just commenting on the romanticization of the 70s being where it was at, like,
right.
Yeah.
I have a distinct memory of this being in like the early 90s and being at a friend's house in a mobile home. He lived in a trailer park, and I watched with his it was where I saw my first porn mag too. A lot of memories coming back.
Playboy, Penthouse, Jugs, Hustler.
I don't even think it was a main brand one, which is like some of those
Signature
can be the best.
Farms boobs. Hill Country Fair, or whatever the like Safeway brand is.
I remember
the store pretends to not be the brand. No, we're Signature Local Farms.
But I remember watching SNL, like sleeping over at his place on a Saturday night, and him and his family watching SNL, and them just like rolling on the floor, laughing at everything. And I was like, I get it. Like, I'm not missing the joke, but because they kept telling me, like, don't you think it's funny? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a quiet laugher.
His name's Mango, and he dances. You don't love him? You don't love the cheerleaders? Actually, like, I might just be remembering the greatest hits DVDs, so I don't remember if the actual full episodes were consistently that good, but the years with Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Norm Macdonald, Chris Rock, David Spade, Phil Hartman, those had some really, really good sketches.
Yeah, I would say that I bet there's probably one good sketch every week, which isn't bad, I suppose.
No, especially because they came up with it all that week, and they're hypersensitive to the climate or whatever. Even though they had Donald Trump host while he was running for president, but they're still like, you know, will this fit? Is this going to hit our audience? Is this going to be too offensive? This too boring? And then the egos involved with the writers, I bet, where the head writer doesn't want this new writer to get their sketch in. I heard there's a lot of that. At least 10 years ago. Maybe it's like super friendly and stuff now. But
well, should we focus?
Yeah, we should focus on not SNL, especially because I don't truly believe anything I said in the last 10 minutes of it. And it's such a boring topic, like everyone's opinion on it sucks now. And it was good 5 years ago and it was bad 10 years ago.
Never liked it. I've been consistent. All right. So I actually reached out to a past guest that I had on. Here we are talking about ADHD, and she did send me like an official test that has like proprietary things, so I can't include a link or anything like that. But she also just said, but that would, like, we'd have to fill the thing out and send it to her, get results, and with all these things too, if a proper ADHD test done right also comes along, you don't just answer these questions, you're observed, the people that you know answer these questions. There's a lot more going on than just these questions. So this isn't a conclusive thing anyway. It's my understanding that it is a problem, that especially in early ADHD diagnosis, which was kind of shady. It happened around the same time as the No Child Left Behind stuff. And
wait, that's Bush, right? That's like 2003.
Yeah, no, that was before that.
I thought No Child Left Behind was a Bush thing.
I think that was first Bush.
HW? Damn. It was definitely relevant during W's time, though, because I remember it as being part of the culture.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, so it was hastened. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it was hastened by that. And so there was, you know, it was like there's all these pressures on schools to just get these grades up. And so they were doing these ADHD tests, which I think still a lot of them are today, just 15 minutes of a doctor like looking at a kid and like, you know, sometimes not diagnosing a thing because they're like, oh, they didn't show any tics or whatever, and sometimes over-diagnosing. But it was a way that schools were able to just throw a bunch of kids into special needs to have them opt out of the screwing up their scores.
That's a tough sentence.
Yeah. And then also, but also at the same time, it probably did some good in terms of actually raising awareness to kids that had legitimate needs for ADHD. But there's also just like lots of, it's a tricky one because there's just lots of weird, shady stuff that, like, Major League Baseball players are something like 2 or 3 times more likely to have ADHD than,
because they're looking at first base and third base, and they're not just eyes on the ball. Because
otherwise that stimulant would be illegal if they were taking it, if they didn't have a clinical diagnosis.
Which stimulant? Adderall?
Yeah, I think all of them. I don't think you can take any of them without. I think all of them are performance enhancer.
Yeah, and they're methamphetamines.
Yeah, and baseball is like a boring, tedious-ish I like baseball. I used to play, but it's, there's a lot of inactivity and like waiting, but with hyper attention, you know, and like hitting a baseball or pitching with accuracy or whatever. I don't know enough about who uses it the most and who doesn't, but there's just like weird things like that where like weird pockets of people get more diagnosis than others, or people have some demographics of people have more of an inclination to. Early on, rich kids were getting the diagnosis the most, but that's just because families had the money to,
take them to the hut,
take them to the doctor and provide more care. And so then lately it's been more minority groups and poor communities, but it's not because they have higher rates necessarily as much as it is that they're finally like getting up to speed with getting some of the healthcare that they should have been getting earlier.
They get the hand-me-downs, huh?
Yes.
Like all the old like PlayStations, they're just on PlayStation 3 now. They get ADHD. We're already on to like OCD, and not as in like, because I'm not diagnosed and I'm
What do you think? What do you think ahead of time?
Do I have it?
Yeah, you think you have. Where do you think you'd fall on a scale?
I don't think I have it, to be honest. I think I might get but that's a contradiction. I feel like I do get bored of stuff and I present as someone that has it, but I'm totally capable of focusing on something for 3 hours without drifting away. But
that's awesome.
It's a matter of do I practice that a lot? Yeah, I'd say I do, especially because now the post-COVID times where it's just me and Yosh and Catherine and the occasional friend here and there, a guest appearance, but there's no, in school, it'd be like, oh, this kid has ADHD. He doesn't want to hear about Thomas Jefferson. He doesn't want to learn about, fractal geometry. He doesn't want to climb the rope.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of it. And boys tend to have higher rates of ADHD, although I believe in adults, it's a little closer to 1-to-1. And it does have, so I guess there's some like in the Netherlands or something like that, there's some region where they start school a couple years, now there's preschool there's preschool where like 3-year-olds are starting.
Yeah, and they're
school
already
and
dating and have OnlyFans. It's crazy. Not to sex worker shame.
No,
that's too young for that.
And
the 3-year-old ADD.
The idea is that, well, one, evolutionarily, no kid is supposed to be sitting behind a desk doing like learning a difficult task of reading or writing or whatever. And so one, there's an evolutionary mismatch, but on the other side of it, if you wanted to say that it's not causing ADHD, it could just be revealing it, like because you're put to the test a little sooner than in life than you would earlier. And so maybe it is making actual existing symptoms reveal themselves. I don't know. I go back and forth with because I think to your point of kids not caring about the subject matter, I think my experience of school was all just trivia. It was memorizing trivia. It wasn't concepts. It wasn't anything like meaty. It wasn't discussions.
Yeah, remember the date of this battle. Remember this guy's the name of his ship. Remember the name of the general that he killed. But remember it a little less than the name of the main statue guy.
Yeah, and of course, a little bit of speed is going to help some kids with that, because that shit's tedious.
I remember
and totally unnecessary. It's like you're memorizing for the sake of memorizing.
And in college, everyone was on Adderall, and I imagine still is. And out here in Hollywood, like in the writer community and stuff, it's so common. It's not a thing of like, oh, you take Adderall? It's everyone has it. It's so crazy.
And then in ADHD is also, it's a legitimate thing that happens that negatively I believe it's negatively and positively impacted me. I've never had an official diagnosis, but I've done things like this and talked with enough people, and
what's the definition?
There's never been a question.
Is there a definition of what ADHD? I know it's attention hyperactive or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, but is there a spectrum? Is there a threshold where, like, if you cross this line of not being able to focus, you are it? Or is it just this wishy-washy, like, yeah, I'm just feeling out the groove in you and you've got it. Just feeling out that
That's an excellent
groove.
question that I don't have a satisfying answer for at all. I don't know where those lines are. Symptoms are impulsiveness, disorganization, and problems prioritizing, poor time management skills, problems focusing on tasks, trouble multitasking, which multitasking is bullshit. No one's really good at it.
Yeah, all
People
this just sounds
tell
like a
themselves
human
story.
being, though.
For sure. I mean, that's a solid argument that could be made. Excessive activity and restlessness, poor planning, low frustration tolerance. But now there are, I forget what region of the mind it is, but there is in, if you give someone with ADHD, or at least severe or ADHD MRI, there is abnormal brain activity. There's actually there's a certain so it's weird that it's the hyperactive. So you think like, oh, they can't control their mind's probably racing, going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it's actually there's a dampened connections, and there's kind of like hiccups where the brain isn't making the connections that it should, and so it like startles, it wakes itself up, and that's where some of the fidgetiness and stuff and the impulse and the distractiveness comes in. And like I have like a weird sort of Tourette's that I do sometimes if I'm I do it by myself all the time, but if I'm around people, I always have to mask it because it's involuntary. It's not.
What are some
totally
of the slurs?
Involuntarily. Well,
what slurs do you shout?
It's not like Tourette. Usually, I'm just like fuck. Like I'm just, which I think a lot of people do things like, like you have some memory of being saying something stupid last week or whatever that pops into your head out of nowhere, and you go, fuck. But
that's Bill Burr. He talks
like
about
such a habit.
Bill Burr will talk about just being in the shower and just cringing, just being like, oh, fuck. And then his wife will be like, you okay in there? He's like, yeah, I'm just remembering something that happened 14 years ago.
Yeah. So I think that I might do that more than the average person because, I mean, it draws attention in social situations. People that know me well, they've just grown accustomed to kind of they look at me and then I'm like, and they ignore it. They know to just ignore it.
I wonder if I've never noticed, just because amongst comedians, like, you don't come off as extra strange compared to some of the other characters we know, and the comedian world is just such an odd bunch.
Well, I think that's another part of the thing with ADHD is that you come off just like anyone else, but just a bit more annoying in that you're unreliable, and tend to, when someone's not listening to you and drifting off or whatever, that can be annoying. So people with ADHD, kids with ADHD statistically have many less friends, because also impulsivity is something that people tend to like steer clear of. Generally, It can be fun.
It could be a choice too, right? Like, having less friends doesn't mean like, oh, no one showed up to my birthday party. It could just mean like, no, I was just working on this like toy train I was building for 2 weeks, so I didn't call anyone back. But the train's looking good. I'm sick of this train. What else we got? And so on.
Or you showed up to the birthday party and you're young and you don't have the regulatory functions that other kids your age have, and you rip open the kid's present that wasn't meant for you, and you don't get invited back. There's stuff like that happens too.
That happens more often than we think about, probably.
Yeah, because it's big. It's a really difficult time regulating is the main thing. It's not certainly people with ADHD can play a video game for hours on end with perfect focus and it's domain specific, but it's a lot of times more regulatory issues than anything. So then there's like self-harm that seems to come along with there's like higher rates of suicide too, bipolar and ADHD. And that also might just be like, well, one, I can say from personal experience that I get so fucking annoyed with much in the same way that like a parent would get annoyed with a kid that doesn't clean up their room, or you get annoyed with a friend or like a coworker that doesn't show up on time or forgets to do this one important task all of the time, and you got to pick up after them or whatever, or a friend that's unreliable. I think probably people with ADHD, at least myself, I get so annoyed by those same behaviors in myself all of the time. And it's so fucking annoying to be unreliable and to not be able to make accurate predictions about what I'll actually accomplish and, what I won't.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that maybe has to do with some of the self-harm stuff that tends to go, which I don't self-harm. Well, I mean, depends.
You don't cut your wrists.
I don't. No, I don't. I'm not a cutter, but I certainly engage in reckless behavior.
Yeah, you do some self-harm, but that's not what it's about. It's about the adrenaline, and the self-harm is a cost of entry. But all this, I mean, like we've disclaimered 100 million times, like ADHD is real. Call your doctor about ADHD today.
Yeah.
But it's like all this sounds like also just being so hard on yourself and, unable to complete your entire to-do list daily, unable to reply to every text. It's like all these things that I'm like, oh, I guess I do have ADHD because I've never finished a whole to-do list in a day. Not once.
Yeah.
Always at 30% or something.
It's why it's really tricky. It's not like having cancer. Like they're pretty damn accurate with diagnosing cancer.
You got it. Good night.
Like ADHD, it gets over and underdiagnosed all the time. I think it's just a really tricky one.
What about ADD? What happened to that one? It wasn't as popular.
I don't know when they threw the H in there.
I thought they were different. One is hyperactive, one is regular.
Are they different? I thought that they just...
They rebranded, huh?
I thought they rebranded.
It's like LGBTQ plus now. LGBTAQ plus.
Yeah.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, asexual, pansexual, queer, plus-sized people, and emptiness after the plus to imply people that not only don't identify as anything, they don't even identify as not identifying. They're like just silence when it's like, hey, what do you identify as? Just so that's why there's a space after LGBTQ plus.
There's a space.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. You're on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you nailed all of them.
Yeah. As much as I joke about not being ultra woke, I actually am woke as fuck. Whereas at least I can speak the language impeccably.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that you're a kind, thoughtful person that's sympathetic to those groups of people. That's
why I give every
ADHD.
That's why I give 50% of my income to them every month. Anonymously,
of
course.
ADD is now just an outdated term. That's
well, I learned something new today, as we do on this show. But I learned something specific new.
I don't know if it was. I don't know what happened, but it is weird that they call it a deficit to tell a child that they have a deficit.
That's you're missing attention. Like some people have full attention, and you're missing something there, Tommy.
Oh, there's also the different. There's a difference in which those drugs interact, which, like speed, like you like energy drinks, but
yeah,
speed. Like if I were to do Coke or something like that, well, one, I don't mind Coke. A good Coke is enjoyable, but I haven't really ever enjoyed Adderall or Ritalin or any of those things. I always have a emergency kit for when I have like a 10-hour drive or something like that I have to make. And it gets the job done.
Are you saying emergency kit or emergency, like the powder?
Oh, no, emergency kit with like Adderall or whatever in it, like a couple of pills stored away for when I really need it. And like I really thought I got a prescription for what is it? I'm forgetting the name. Oh man, there's the listeners right now screaming it at the speaker. Modafinil or
Modafinils. Modaffodils, please. Sir, you have the maximum amount of daffodils in the bouquet. More daffodils.
Yeah, modafinil.
Oh, it was right. Modafinil.
Yeah, it's for, that's more for like sleep disorders and stuff, but there was someone that I better not say who it is, but there's someone that there was like there was a person that was like insanely productive.
Oh, productive.
And someone that I really admire. And you would know them. And then one day I was like, what's your, here, maybe I'll put it in the chat here. Cause they probably wouldn't care. But one day I was
didn't know you knew Beyonce. That's cool.
I was like, you're always getting off a plane. Every time I bump into you, you're there for a day and you're gone and you're like doing all this stuff. It's crazy. How do you do it? And he is just like, oh, modafinil. I thought he was going to give me like some platitude or like,
I read drug.
This book called Getting Things Done, and that's when it changed my life in one habit that I like to employ. I thought that's what I was after. And he was just like, oh, modafinil.
That's life, isn't it? That's like the truth of it all. Oh, it's this cheat code. Not cheat code. He might need it. Or she might need it. Or they might need it. Or he blank might need it. No, I was trying to keep them extra anonymous.
Yeah, it's fine.
And now we just eliminated a huge portion of the population. It's like Guess Who when you're playing, and then half of the faces, you like, is it a him? And then you...
Yeah.
So we just eliminated that. But no, that's kind of surprising. And did you say it's an amphetamine? Amphetamine?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to get a prescription for, and even when you're not really supposed to be prescribed it, if you're bipolar, apparently some doctors don't know that and will happily just write a script. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I never abuse. I'm sure it's prone to abuse or anything else, but the point is I was excited. I was like, okay, maybe this will turn things around for me legitimately. And if I get high in the as well and like a little bit of euphoria, awesome. And it was no euphoria. And it keeps you awake, but it doesn't make you feel awake.
That's shit. That's the worst part of being awake. Tired. You just want to feel awake.
Yeah.
So you stay up without feeling awake and there's no euphoria? That
was my experience with it, and it was really miserable. And I've done it many times. But if you have a 10-hour drive and you don't want to, and you need to make it, and you don't have time for naps, and you just need to get it done, it works. You're not going to be happy. Whereas Ritalin or Adderall, that comes with a little bit of, all right, But
yeah, it makes me, not that I've ever tried Adderall in case my parents are listening, but the fictional universe me that has tried Adderall before, it makes me very like, I become social correspondence wise. It's like what I imagine it must be to be someone like Mike Kaplan or my friend Flynn. Like they're so good at writing back. Like they write back instantly. They stay in touch with everyone. They keep those plates spinning. And it seems like they're not doing it as a chore. It seems like it brings them joy. And I remember on the Adderall feeling, it was like, oh, a text. I'll write back to this one, and I should write back to this. I should reach out to this friend I haven't talked to in 8 months. I should reach out to my uncle in Pakistan. I should reach out to some random stranger in Egypt. And then it eventually dies off and I return to normal me. That's like, oh, right. Replying is hard.
Yeah, well, that's people with ADHD as well. I'm not saying you're one of them, but this is like one of the characteristics is a lack of intrinsic motivation.
That's why I have all these fucking books and YouTube videos say, you can do it. Get up.
Maybe I don't know. I wouldn't be, but it's certainly I lack. I mean, you know, I was going to do a podcast last fall called Shane versus Meaning, all about how there's no point to anything, and that's like something that I project outwards, which I don't necessarily I recognize as being like as delusional as anything else can be, but
it's funnier too. That perspective is funnier. And I don't know if you were going to have, I forget if you said you were doing it solo style or having guests. And we also might have mentioned
guest each week.
A new guest each week. Yeah, and we also mentioned that one possible title of this show was going to be Shane versus Ramin. But we ended up not because it was too like versus-y or something. And also I didn't want to have to represent meaning every time. But I like that perspective equally to the everything is beautiful and conscious and we are the one love light vibration. I think it's so funny to have the ultra pointless one because they both hold each other up, I guess.
And it might be a lack of I think dopamine is what because antidepressants would be serotonin, but I think that the stimulants are releasing dopamine, which is a major player in motivation. And so it's also, if you just can't get yourself to give a fuck, it will release enough chemistry to get neurochemistry to get you to care enough to focus on a thing.
I just want minimum wage, like with the serotonin. I don't want huge payday like a lawyer or doctor. Just pay me minimum wage serotonin and dopamine for the fucking text, for the email, for doing the task. But it's like just such a feudal indentured servant, dare I say, slavery of it.
I think I struggle with shooting for the moon too often because I don't leave good alone. I don't leave well enough alone. If I'm feeling good, I'm just like, let's see if we can take this up a notch.
Oh yeah, you're Tinker Coffee. Shout out to Tinker Coffee. I know we said no ads, but they sent me some stuff.
I have no idea what they are.
It's a coffee company in like Edstonville, Connecticut. I don't know any of the states' name other than New York and California and Texas. Mansfield, Connecticut. Thralabama. North Vermont-gia.
It would be so amazing if you didn't know any of the states and we found that out right now.
I know them, but if you asked me to name them in order, I'd probably get to like 20.
In order?
Or maybe like alphabetical. Like, so Alaska, Alabama, West Virginia, regular Virginia, Montana, Wyoming, Utah,
Idaho.
That's
all of them.
East England, and then fuck you.
Yeah, people will need to be on Ritalin to listen to us list off all 50 states.
Yeah, it's not fun.
But there's definitely some euphoria that comes along with it. But I can also say that I've had plenty of experiences doing like cocaine. There'll be a group of friends that don't have ADHD that do coke, and they're like, "Woo!" And then I do it, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay, this is what normal people feel like. Like I just feel like I can focus and do things. I can tip it over and do more or whatever, but it just that's a common characteristic. People with ADHD, if they take a stimulant like that, it just tends to make them more normal. Kind of like what you said, just like, oh, now I can just reply to texts and stuff, these things that I can't normally do.
Yeah, and it feeds the energy too. Like that correspondence gave me energy to engage in more correspondence. And then I remember that, oh, correspondence is fun. Doing anything is fun. Doing the dishes can be enjoyable. And then it flips on the side where like nothing fun, where if you want to go on a roller coaster through sundaes with your tongue out and like licking all the sundaes while like your favorite band is playing live and the other roller coaster, just regular style, is yeah, just existing it all kind of sucks, doesn't it?
Your favorite band is in the roller coaster next to you, jamming out for you a private parallel track roller coaster ride with your favorite band while you lick ice cream. That's so much ice cream to lick at such a
It is a dumb
speed.
fantasy now that I think about it.
I mean, I like most of it, but I mean,
what about licking your favorite band?
I guess,
or like all your favorite bands and you get to lick them going down the roller coaster.
I think if there's just different flavors along the ride and then you dip down once in a while and you get a lick. Also, how long is this roller coaster where your band's getting like
it's where the Large Hadron Collider is in Sweden or Switzerland or wherever.
That's amazing.
Those two are not the same. I think people confuse them, but I think Switzerland and Sweden are different.
Oh no, they're the exact same thing.
No, they're not. They're different. They must be. The Swiss and the Swedish.
Okay, Mr. Shalabama. No, they're different. You're right. All right. Do you want to take this test?
I'd love to take a test.
I'll pull up the.
Oh, and before we take the test, I also want to bring up that my friend's dad, who was a doctor and specialized in diagnosing people with ADHD.
Really?
He never officially diagnosed me, but he knew me personally, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're an extreme case of it."
An extreme case?
That's what he said, like, you know, in a joking manner, but also it was serious. So like I kind of took that as my formal diagnosis.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if you had it, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's tricky to tell for sure. All right. Well, and also I used to have a joke in my act. I won't do it verbatim or anything, but just the premise was that like one of the reasons why I'm skeptical of the ADHD diagnosis is that one, it's kind of like an egocentric thing from the teacher's point of view, you know, like it's hard to sustain interest in front of any crowd, and it gets in your head when someone's not paying attention, and so it's because the point I was making is that there's no over attention disorder, you know. There's no one. That's
a Mitch Hedberg joke where something about he took a AD. I might be screwing up, but something to the thing of he took an ADD medication, but he doesn't have ADD, so he just got really interested in everything. He got mad when a story was over because he had too much attention. The joke is better. Just look up Mitch Hedberg ADD.
Yeah, but it's like there is no diagnosis of that. That's never brought up at a parent teacher conference that your kid pays too close of attention in school to details that they aren't going to help them in life or whatever else, and memorized all these trivial dates that they don't need to know about. And so it's also just weird and biased, where it's like I also think that my other thing that I think is that I think that some people are more attentive to their inner worlds than others. And how do you tease apart what is attention? Like, if we're only measuring attention by what is out here and your ability to listen to what someone else wants to tell you, and
stop daydreaming, Shane. Listen to Christopher Columbus, his first ship. What was it called? Exactly. And then meanwhile, you were like thinking of the coolest shit ever. And then it's like,
exactly.
No, it was called the Mayflower. It's called, no, exactly. It wasn't called the Mayflower. It's called the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Maria.
Yeah. And instead I was thinking of the coolest shit ever. I'm a great daydreamer. And that's what we spend, you're an artist. We spend our lives in our inner worlds and daydreaming and imagining things and whatnot.
That is something cool about, and like we're nowhere near there yet, but the digital world, something cool about that is we are getting closer and closer to a world where we can step into people's imaginations. And right now it's in the form of your social media page and website and stuff. But once it goes into full virtual, it's like, hey, welcome to my world. And then sometimes it's like, did you just get this from Squarespace? Or sometimes people notice like, oh, you built this world yourself. You didn't just take the Squarespace Louvre or whatever.
Yeah. I hope I'm not overhyping my inner world, because when that'll be weird for the big reveal. Like, all right, are you guys ready? And then it's just monkeys on unicycles, of course. My favorite thing.
I would stay for a couple hours. Then I'd be like, oh, I gotta go. I left the oven on in my world. That's the one problem with my world. Still doesn't have an automatic oven shut off.
Your world has some weak ass ovens. All right, so here we go. And again, this is just you can just Google this one. This one is psychcentral.com. There's a bunch of these, like the scientists I asked, it's just like, there's a bunch of these things. They're probably fine enough. Wasn't vouching for it or anything, and just sent me a link to this one. I think she just did a quick Google search, but it looks like, I looked at the formal test that's proprietary or whatever, and it's and this I believe is much shorter than the personality research test, by the way, which is like 300 questions. I think this one is very, very short. I think this is like 20 questions or something.
That's
like
short
that.
as fuck.
Not even, or 15. And so I say that because we can expand as much as we want without having to worry about running out of time. So how often do you have difficulty sustaining your attention while doing something for work, school, a hobby, or fun activity? Example, remaining focused during lectures, lengthy reading, or conversations.
Does it want a percent?
Oh, sorry. It's never, rarely, sometimes, or often.
Often.
Yeah, I'm an often. I'm an always.
Yeah, I was going to say, where's the always?
Yeah. I mean, that's, like you said, I mean, that's such a human condition thing. And most people are going to just be hard on I mean, there are people that are phenomenal listeners, for sure. And I'm not one of them, and they probably recognize that about themselves. How often are you easily distracted by external stimuli, like something in your environment or unrelated thoughts?
Often.
Oh, yeah. That's That's super often. I'm like off the charts on that one. All right. How often? I have a feeling we're going to get.
We're going to be all O's here.
I have a feeling.
We're going to get a key to the city.
I mean, should we talk about these at all? So, I mean, again, something in your environment or unrelated thoughts. One thing about listening that as someone who has annoyed a number of people by my inability to listen well, mostly girlfriends of mine. It's and it's something that I admit is a deficit. I wish I was better at it, and I have to, be like, please don't. I'm working on it, and please don't take it personally. It's not that I'm not interested, but one of the things that I especially noticed with Here We Are is that one, there's distracting thoughts of like pressure or, oh man, I don't have a good question coming up, or how much time is there? There are distracting thoughts like that, sure, and I would qualify those as being truly like distracted, even though they're often not all that disruptive. I'm used to that. I'm used to just like, I'm just beating myself up a little bit. Forget about that, and I can come back to it. But the main thing that I think is a part of the human condition and a part of how learning works, if you're really doing it well and you want to have retention, and especially someone like you or I who our livelihood is in articulating these things, is you hear something new and your brain goes to work on like processing that thing that you were listening, and then you heard something really interesting. At least this happens to me all the time. I hear something really interesting, and then my mind goes off building worlds about this new thing that I just thought of. And I'm thinking, how would I explain this to someone else? Which is a great way to learn if you can teach it, to someone else, and if you can phrase it in your own way. And if you can make it make sense to you, and if you can make your own connections based on that new piece of information, your retention is going to be so much better. For those wonderful moments in which I have, and those are my favorite moments, when like someone maybe just blew my mind. But the thing is that now I'm like wrapped up in that, like, oh man, that was so fascinating. And now my mind's going in a million different directions, processing that, thinking about the implications of that new information, perceiving the world in a new way. And from the outside, it can seem like, oh, this person hasn't been listening for the last 2 minutes. That's true. I wasn't, but it's because I was listening super hard and very interested in what you were actually saying, so much so that I was like coming up with new questions about it.
Yeah. And there's the opposite end of the spectrum where do you ever try to overcorrect, or you don't try to overcorrect, but you end up overcorrecting, and that I'm like, I'm just going to listen, and I'm not going to do the thought cloud in my head without the daydream journey of tying the things together. And then they finish talking and you're like, oh, I was just in listening mode, and now I have no thoughts on things because I was just literally just taking it in, and now I'm just kind of here. And that version sucks too. So it's that like, how do you keep one foot out on the shore and then one foot in the ocean of ideas, and like going off or having an anchor at least, so to bring back some stuff?
That's such an excellent question. And again, we're stuck at the same point that you brought up earlier, which is like, where's the line? What is, I mean, I guess they're trying to define a line by having, never, rarely, sometimes, often, or whatever. But even as we're discussing what is attention itself, like as social animals, we just seem to think of attention as this external thing. And man, there's a lot of people that don't give attention to their inner worlds.
Oh yeah. I just learned the last year that there's some people that don't think in their head, or at least say they do. They only have thoughts as they speak, which is so bizarre to me.
That is so bizarre to me too. But there's people that report that, and I believe them. It's like sometimes you ask someone, like I thought the same thing with like suicidal thoughts. I was like, oh, everyone has these, right? And then some people are like, no, I'm telling you, just never, like, you mean intellectually thought of it? Like, okay, but like never once have I like thought about killing myself. Like, I'm not lying. I just haven't. I'm like, I believe that hasn't happened to you, but that's a little more understandable because suicide's evolutionarily strange for an organism to think of anyway. But to not have a mind's eye running various simulations about future outcomes.
Yeah. Are these just NPCs? Are these people that don't have a soul and they just are like in this reality and then they blink out when we die?
I think that there is a major difference in how visual people like you and I are. You probably more than me even, but I think of my mind's eye is especially vivid, and I can picture things really well, whereas a lot of people just can't. Got it.
Oh, nice. Took me a minute, but I got it too. Like, wait a minute, that's a rhinoceros head. And then I flipped it, and then I fixed the blue giraffe.
It took me a minute. That's how they test it. They just have a timer. How fast? Well, that will be cool once you have the MRI thing, and you can actually, that actually is able to then illustrate your inner worlds and your dreams. And no, like once. Like
I don't know how far Neuralink is. Like, I know Neuralink and MRI are not the same thing, and but just be able to broadcast, because brain waves are a real thing. That's not a woo thing. Like, you actually have,
right.
And they even sold a thing at the dollar store, that a video game that you control with brain waves. It's probably not 100% accurate, but like you make the thing shoot, like when you think about shooting it.
There's neurofeedback. So, I mean, they have for people that had various like paralysis or whatever, where they can't talk, people like in conditions like Stephen Hawking's,
Lou Gehrig's, I think.
Yeah, but he also, like, he could talk, and then he got pneumonia somewhere along the way, and then there's like a surgery that happened, and he that's when he lost his voice and everything. And but I guess you can train people. You can show them pictures of things like house and like different kinds of food and stuff, and then you're giving them an MRI or whatever, and then you're having them look at that and register that, and then imagine saying those words, and then it picks up on what like specific region of the brain is saying the word salad or whatever.
So we're inching closer and closer.
So then you can just say, the computer can just say things by thinking it.
Salad.
With your mind, which, by the way, they have much better. So Stephen Hawking, he just kept the same voice that he had, because it was his brand.
Did I tell you that my first experience knowing who Stephen Hawking was during one of those like space shows, and he was talking on it, and then I forget if it was my mom or my dad, but said like, that's the smartest man in the world. And I just remember thinking like, oh, that's mean, but that's hilarious though. You're really funny, but that's mean. You shouldn't be making jokes like that. And then I learned like, oh no, it actually is a guy with a like neurological atrophy, muscular disease thing, and he can only communicate with that. But like, it's such a contrast, because you just don't you think Albert Einstein and at the chalkboard, and you have an archetype of the smartest man in the world. And then you see this guy talking through the computer and he's drooling and he's got the big glasses and his eyes are shooting all over the place.
Yeah, I guess my first serious relationship that, lasted for some time was she had gone to Caltech and Hawking was there, and he would be like wheeling around and whatever on campus, and he would intentionally like try to run people over and stuff for a joke,
funny.
like of someone, which is a hilarious thing to do.
Oh, I love him even more.
Yeah. He was a little bit of an asshole. He left. He left
his wife for his niece or something.
No, worse than that.
What?
Well,
that was a joke answer. Okay, I want to hear the worst.
Well, niece is bad, I guess, depending on age. But there's been geniuses like Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein. They both married their cousins. But
there's only 1,000 humans back then.
Yeah, that's
like
true. It's
either your cousin or the enemy.
So what happened was, I hope I'm recalling this okay. So he has Lou Gehrig's, he's deteriorating, and then he gets pneumonia. His immune system's weak, and he gets pneumonia on top of it. He nearly dies. He's rushed. They have these emergency surgeries and stuff. They're trying to save the smartest person. On the planet.
He's had his feet on the welcome mat of death for a long time.
Yeah, he set the Guinness Book of World Records for living the longest with Lou Gehrig's by decades.
Damn.
I believe.
Because of he lucked out, or do you think it was because he was famous and he got extra attention?
Probably maybe a little both.
Yeah.
And maybe fuck if I know. But he so then he lost his ability to talk. And he was, I think he could write a little bit, and then he was losing that. And so someone reached out to this guy that was working on this revolutionary new, computer system way of, using a thing to select little words like, hey, we have this very special person that's like a brilliant mind and really wondering if you can help. And the person is like, is it Stephen Hawking? And they're like, yeah. And he was like, absolutely. Built Stephen Hawking as first thing so he could talk again. Stephen Hawking stole that dude's wife.
Oh, that's not bad. That's like, I would be impressed as fuck. She belongs to you, my friend.
He built his voice for him. No, you're okay with that?
Does his dick even work at all?
That's not like...
It couldn't work. There's no way it could work. Unless there's like a steel rod they implanted in it, which even more respect. Respect to the rod. But you build the way to communicate and like the everything, and then he uses that technology to like out charm the person who already, like, not just girlfriend, your wife, someone already committed to you, supposedly someone who loved you. Or maybe he just was neglectful towards her while he was building the machine, and she's like, I'll show you. You don't show up to our dinner dates anymore. You don't listen to me.
This guy must be pretty important. You're spending all day on
a spite marriage. Like, I'm gonna marry the guy that you built this thing for while you were ignoring me. I don't understand anything about black holes. I don't like giving him sponge bath. The steel rod dick doesn't do it for me, but I'm leaving you.
And she was awful to him, so it got him back. She was like wildly abusive and stuff, I guess. I guess she would like
walk out of the room during a fight and unplug the thing.
I think she would also like maybe hit him sometimes, and
with
sometimes like threaten to drown.
Entropy is the fundamental fate of the entire cosmos.
Shut up. The universe is going to expand forever, old man.
But so then he and then they started, decades went by and they started advancing all this technology. Like I said, there are people that exist today that can think of a word. It's a limited vocabulary, it's not perfect, but they can think of a word. They have a thing hooked in, they're paralyzed. They can just think of a word and the computer will say it for them in whatever voice that they, ways or whatever can. Yeah,
UK
or
English
Elvis
too.
or whatever.
I like doing text to speech. Me and my friends used to write the most horrible, disgusting sentences you could imagine, and then give it to a text to speech translator, and then have the lady or the guy or whatever read it, and you just send that MP3 to your friend, and you laugh it up. But what's really fun is giving it to the French one. Give English to the French one, give it to the Hindi one. Make the accent voice read the thing. That's a fun game too.
Well, they do celebrity ones and stuff now too.
Oh,
so
damn.
you can do Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think Oscar the Grouch or things like that.
There was a demo of a deepfake voice thing where they got Jordan Peele to say a sentence that he never spoke. Using just 15 seconds of his voice, they managed to use the deep audio to synthesize a completely new sentence, and it sounded just like him. And that was 5 years ago, so who knows where it's at now.
Amazing. I can't wait to be
But that's not real time though, because the other ones, for the paralyzed people and stuff, you need it real time.
The point is that they had, because he eventually lost use of his hand. So he couldn't dial the thing up anymore, and then had to be wheeled completely. And then he had one muscle left in one of his cheeks, and they would put the thing on that muscle, and he'd just do an Elvis thing and move that muscle a little bit. And that's how he would select from all these, he would go to categories of
Holy
words
balls.
and that's how he wrote books and shit.
He wrote about black hole dynamics using one muscle in his cheek.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And
Did
there
he
was
really?
better
Or
options. Yes.
But he also probably had,
Help.
it's not he had help to,
for sure.
His research assistants probably be this paragraph good, and then he would go.
I believe he wrote let's see.
Theory of Everything.
Or
a lot of people have a book called Theory of Everything. My big toe.
The Brief History of Time was what year?
That's right. Brief History of Time.
1988. Yeah, he was still writing at that time, and so it's not like his most fundamental work was written by someone else. But yeah, so if you saw him in interviews and stuff, it was because in modern years, it was because the questions were ahead of time and the answers were already written. Because it would otherwise it would take him. I think he could say 4 words a minute or something like that, and so they would script it all ahead of time for him.
One word every 15 seconds.
It was mostly because he was stubborn and didn't like learning new technology. He didn't want to learn a new thing. Like how my dad uses a flip phone because he doesn't want to learn how to do a smartphone.
Oh, that's
like
funny.
that, but for his fucking voice. Can you imagine? And you're a scientist that knows about black holes and is trying to get humanity off Earth and things like that. And I don't want to learn this new app.
Yeah, but also if the cost of that is like also you don't get to talk while you're learning this, it's trial by fire. It's probably like,
Yeah,
the first time was so traumatic that I'm just kind of done. I should be dead now.
Maybe.
I'm going to ride this thing out. That's his.
The rumor
flip
was he
phone.
is a rather stubborn person, though.
Yeah.
In some odd regards.
I
but-
wonder if he was fundamentally maybe bad tempered or whatever thing you want to label it, or how much of it is frustration at having so much of your facilities taken away, where you're just like, you're lucky I'm even this nice. Like, I should just be using this to curse all existence instead of writing about brief history of time. Just fuck you, fuck everything, fuck the cosmos, fuck black holes, fuck this wife that I stole from the guy that made this thing that I'm using to tell you to fuck off. But he didn't. He used it to be kind of nice.
Okay, he had, what was this? I'm trying to find this related thing. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly is a book. I think that there's a book that someone wrote like in a like partial coma or something like that, where
what do you call it? The Diving Bell and the Butterfly? Sounds like a dream state.
Locked in, escape. What was, anyway, I'm trying to think of, I think someone has written a book from like some state where they hooked them up to something or other so they could get a book out of them. Oh, or that's what it was. It was like through blinking. Someone wrote a book through blinking. I'm going to look it up.
That's rough.
Yeah, the Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Yep.
Damn. So they wrote it with Morse code with their eyes, or binary, or whatever thing. Or
he
maybe
it's
lock-in
syndrome.
It's a carousel of words, and you blink when you want to stop. Maybe that's how they do it.
Yeah. I think you like point at all the letters on the alphabet, and then you blink when they get to the one that you like blink twice when you get to the letter and then all the words that start with that draw. Like on Stephen Hawking's, it was like the most likely words. It was like early editions of autofill stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this person blinked 200,000 times to write a book.
That's exhausting. They've got to have like eye drops, just like IVs right up there.
Their eyelids are just fucking jacked, I bet.
Yeah, they can lift weights with their eyelashes because of it. Just the world's strongest lids.
All right.
Have you tried not to get too far off into this tangent? We got to do more questions, but have you tried
ADHD episode? We can get as
far
far off as we. It'd be weird if this was the one episode that we were hyper focused on.
Yeah, so it just shows we're just contrarians. But in virtual reality, there's some apps that have a thing where you don't even need to blink to click. You just focus on the thing, and then it shows the little countdown. So it's like if you want to click that link, you just look at it for a bit, and then it goes to the link. So you don't even need your hands. You don't even need your eyelids. You just need to point your eyes to the link, and then you travel that way.
Wow.
Some meditation ones too, where you go on this like meditation journey on this fictional 3D CGI garden universe. Like you just point your eyes and then you travel in the direction your eyes go. It's very relaxing. But
yeah.
Oh no, there was no but. The but was going to be, but there are some questions at hand.
I was going to say there's kids now that are, raised on tablets, that when they see their first book or magazine or whatever, they try to enlarge. They try to enlarge it, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work intuitively. And there's probably going to be stuff like that. Like as that continues, to advance, like the thing that you were just talking about, as that continues to advance, it's going to be so irritating when you blink and when you're done blinking, the thing didn't show up that you wanted to, that you've come to depend on showing up, like, or the person you tried to blink block in a certain way.
Yeah, the person you tried to block is still there because you blink twice to block a person from your social feed, and then they're still there, and you're like, "What? Get out of here!"
All right. Next question is, how often do you avoid, dislike, or are reluctant to engage in tasks that require sustained mental effort or thought?
100%.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what are we talking about here? You know, I will say that if I asked my parents or something this question, or I have some type A friends, if I ask these questions, I think that they'd be like, never.
Yeah, most of the working world, maybe not all, but a large portion of people with real jobs that do honest work probably have that. And then all the artsy people probably score very low on this.
Mm-hmm.
Or very high on the inability to focus, high on the daydreaming, high on openness, I guess.
See, of the things, so we've done 3 questions so far. The first 2 is like that's not even an issue. Like that, to me that it's questionable to me that those are indicating any kind of a deficit of any kind of trait that you would be easily distracted or whatever. But the avoiding, disliking, reluctant, that is something that is very saliently costly.
And it doesn't mean we don't get over the hump, but it means that there's always a hump. It's always like, oh, how am I going to find the way to go focus?
Right. And then sometimes it's easy. Big yawn. I haven't had a big yawn like that in some time. All right. That was a gold medal yawn. How often do you have trouble listening to someone, even when they are speaking directly to you, like your mind is somewhere else?
I'll go medium on that.
Yeah, I think you're a pretty good listener.
Or I might even go low, because I don't really wander.
So it's never, rarely, sometimes, or often. Rarely?
I'll go rarely.
Put you down
I
for
listen.
A rarely? I think you're a great listener. I'm going to do an often for myself.
You're going to go all the way to often? Yeah, maybe you are.
I mean, I can focus here. I can focus on here we are. And, I've gotten better. But
if it's like someone telling you about their day. I want to give
myself a sometimes, but I don't think that would be being honest with myself.
Often is 51%. 51% is often.
Well, I think it's more like the top 75%. I think it's split up into 4. So thinking about it that way. Yeah. I mean, I have this thing that I noticed from playing pickleball with all these old people, which is that it's not even that I'm not interested in hearing about someone or their life. I just don't want them to ask me questions and I don't want to talk about myself. It just got out recently that I'm a comedian.
Oh, no.
I've been going there for like a year because it's awful. It's like there's already this one person there that's like shows up the next day. You could do pickleball skits. Maybe we could do a show at the court. I'm like, no. Like, this is why I don't talk. And it's unfortunate because it's not, it's like I don't have anything against them. And also, like, I get that people just can't fucking process that they've met someone that's a stand-up comedian and think it's like a big deal or neat or an interesting field or whatever. All things that I no longer think about myself at all. But whatever. I get it. but it's like, if I engage with someone, they're just going to ask me. And I also don't mind talking about I don't mind having an interesting conversation about what I actually do in my craft and my interests. What I mind is shit exactly like that, which is like, you gonna do skits?
Yeah, you gonna tell this joke? You gonna tell this joke about the way I served the ball?
And it's fucking unbearable. And it just makes me cringe so much that I can't even mask it. It's like pretty clear that I don't like it when it happens. And it's awful. And I'm not trying to like, oh, those people are idiots for doing that. I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything, but it's so fucking painful.
Yeah, I think every comedian feels that way. And
yeah,
I've always thought of it like, you want people to have heard of you, or at least the people that would be into you, but you never want to tell someone what you are. Like, you want people to know about you because they found you. Like, if someone saw you on the pickleball court and be like, Shane? Oh shit, it is you. Hey, I don't want to bother you. And not like it's always a hierarchical thing that you're the better thing and they're the fan. Like, it could be a person who's like the best chef in the world, so maybe they're a higher hierarchy than you, but they still be like, oh, I know you from YouTube, I know you from Conan, I'm a big fan, I've loved the Amazon movie Psychonautics. All right, get out of here, come by my restaurant if you ever want to have a tomahawk steak. We just introduced that one. All right, stay fresh later. But when it's like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a comedian. Oh, like Seinfeld, like Kevin Hart.
Yeah,
have you ever told a joke about fucking your own ass? Oh.
No, they don't. That part of the problem is that they haven't even considered how many jokes I've told about fucking my own ass. That's the problem.
Yeah,
they think it's like knock jokes or something that I tell.
Not even just comedy, I guess music too. Any entertainment, you'd want people to have heard of you and not have to explain what a silly career you are.
Yeah, and again, I don't mind having an actual genuine conversation about it, but it's the wanting jokes and also just thinking it's so painful. Like, I get that it's just spotlight effect, but when there's a certain personality that just assumes like, oh, you're gonna be doing jokes about me now, huh? Like, wow, you are. Never is that person interesting. Never once has that person been an interesting person that I'm going to like write material about. And I don't make fun of, I make fun of groups of people, but I can't think of like instances where I've made fun. I don't know. But anyway, whatever. So part of it is with trouble listening is like, I won't engage in conversations with strangers because I don't want it to get there because I have like PTSD from that, like a lot of comics do.
You get told a lot of racist jokes or just not funny ones too on the road. It's like, let me tell you this joke, and they sneak you off in the corner.
Oh man, I wish I could think of this joke. This fucking guy from I'm not even gonna say it in case someone from pickleball happens to be listening. Someone told me this awful street joke, and most of the people there are fucking awesome and like have regular conversations. But there's been so far like 3 doozies, and that's like, oh, that's why I work so hard to avoid this. So anyway. The next question is, how often do you have difficulty organizing an activity or task needing to be done? Example, poor time management, fails to meet deadlines, difficulty managing sequential tasks.
I don't think I miss deadlines if they're real. But if they're my own deadlines, I miss all of them. But if I tell another person, I'll have this to you by August 7th, then I can have it to them by August 7th at midnight.
You're a rarely or a sometimes? Or you're not a often or a never.
I'll go sometimes on this.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I think that you're right on the fence there.
Yeah.
I think I'm over the fence into sometimes. I don't think that I actually do put a lot of shit together that I don't give myself that much credit for.
Oh yeah.
So I probably the first time I took this test, I put myself down for an often, because I remember getting the highest score on all of the questions in the official test when I took it years ago. How often? I don't know why I'm yawning. Sorry, audience. I know it's contagious. I'm enjoying this conversation. How often do you fail to give close attention to details or make careless mistakes in things such as schoolwork, at work, or during other activities?
Rarely. I'm pretty precise.
Yeah, you're pretty precise. Whoops. Let's see. Almost marked the wrong one. I'm going to put me down for sometimes. Yeah. Make careless mistake. Yeah. I better do a sometimes for that one. It's not often. That's something. That's an improvement. It gets easier, I think, as you get older. A lot of these things. I'm hoping they continue to get a little easier for me.
Yeah, especially because we don't do schoolwork. If we had to do schoolwork, who knows? Maybe it would be riddled with mistakes, trying to figure out common core math and learn.
I take
whatever.
a lot of online courses. I do okay.
Okay, then you don't have it. You're like sometimes to rarely.
Yeah, I'm that one. I feel more on the fence, but I still got to give myself a sometimes. But that's been the closest to rarely that I've been so far. How often do you forget to do something you do all the time, such as missing an appointment or paying a bill?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I better throw down a sometimes, which that's. Is that an often for me?
Like I'll forget rent and I'll be like, oh, I've got more money than I thought. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Missing an appointment. I'm going to put me down for an often. Yeah, I better.
Yeah, it's not stuff like brushing your teeth or anything like that you remember.
Yeah. How often do you lose, misplace, or damage something that's necessary in order to get things done?
Rarely.
Like your phone, eyeglasses, paperwork, wallet, keys. Rarely.
I've got a system. I've got a key rack. I've got phone charger station.
I think I might have. Can I give myself a rarely on this?
Name an example. What do you forget?
I mean, I never forget my wallet or keys. I often have to come back to the house for something. I forget here's something that I used to on the road. I would forget like clothes in a closet in a hotel. Lost a lot of shirts that way. But that's also, you're in a different environment. You forgot that you were that's one thing. When I can't find something, it's usually because I put it where it's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And my present self never always underestimates my past self and always assumed that my past self would have never put a thing.
Yeah, it would never be in the freezer. I would never put my phone in the freezer, but you did.
No, like if something goes in a specific drawer, I assume it's not in that specific drawer when it actually is. When I actually put it where it's supposed to go. Yeah, exact opposite. Yeah, I don't put phones
but with
in
the hotel
freezer.
thing, don't you have anxiety? Like, I just look everywhere. I'm lifting up the toilet
No.
seat. I'm looking in the toilet bowl. I'm looking under the sheets. I'm looking under the mattress. Like, I'm paranoid that I'm leaving just
I
my
live like a very
antipsychosis medicine that I forgot that I take.
I'm living do you have psychosis
No,
medicine?
but I mean, I'm that paranoid where it's like, what if I'm forgetting
What if
medicine that
I'm
makes me
forgetting that?
forgetful?
Yeah.
Like phone chargers is the big one.
That
It's
would
like,
be amazing.
what if I left my other phone charger here?
Find that would suck to get older and find out that, because everyone ages differently, but that would be a bummer to do the memento thing where you have to wake up each day and there's like a note on a bottle that's like, take this in your handwriting. Like, okay.
Yeah. Fred is a liar. Don't believe his lies, or whatever the dude's name is. But it would be fun to do once. Like, I've often entertained the idea that I'm just remembering my life right now and I'm on my deathbed, and
me too.
Yeah, it's all like happening again, and then eventually I'm gonna snap out of it and be like, but I was there. It was so real, and now I must say goodbye to all of you, my family of 800 children and half Martian offspring.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is in the brain that makes one feel that way, because I think it's pretty common. Oh, Jesus, why am I?
Yeah, it's a
yawning
sleepy
so much?
day, huh?
I don't know what's going on with me. I don't feel tired, and I'm enjoying myself. I think I got that one big one in, and then I guess there was just some left over or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
We should do a yawning episode. Like, what does yawning mean? Is it to signal to the tribe that it's time to go to bed? Is it a leftover thing from taking in oxygen when you're too tired? So it's like you inhale a lot of oxygen and go...
I remember in Boston, there's this new comic that would just yawn after all of his punchlines and stuff, which I think was like sort of a self-defense mechanism, sort of like a gimmicky thing or whatever. But it was sort of funny.
Yeah.
It got a little old, but it's just like delivering a very good joke and then yawning after.
Wasn't Uncle Lair, right?
Laughing.
I think Uncle Lair kind of did something like that.
No. I don't know who that is. All right. Next question is, how often do you have trouble following through on instructions or failing to finish schoolwork, chores, duties of the workplace? You start a task but quickly lose focus and are easily sidetracked. That's it.
I'm rarely. I'm more about not starting the thing, but once I'm doing it, the dishes are getting 100% done. If I start a stack of bills, it's getting 100% done. I'll finish
That's great.
the thing to completion. I won't just get up and work on something else. That's dumb. My hands are dishy. Why would I go type if my hands are dishy?
I'm an often there.
You'll stop doing the dishes and just go like play Pac-Man or something?
I got a lot of things going on. I'll just work. I skip around quite a bit on my tasks, and I always want to work on whatever task. So sometimes, like right now, I'm playing this game Tichu. That's like
Pikachu?
kind of like euchre.
Oh,
Tichu. It's like spades or hearts. And it's a super fun game, and I'm on a little bit of a kick. But usually, knowing myself, my hack with being distracted and switching tasks too much is that I have a rule about just like I can switch tasks as long as it's onto another task. So I can't stay on a task for very long, but I can switch. I can just do whatever productive thing that I want. The problem with it is that I never check off the main thing, because whatever the main thing is, that's what I don't want to do. I want to do anything else.
You ever hear the
so I'm
quote,
always just doing everything else.
I think it's a Joseph Campbell quote, and it's, "The treasure lies in the cave you least wish to enter.
Yeah.
So the main task is the cave that you don't want to go in. And that's where it's all at. But we'll pick like, no, I'll check the mail first before I pay that bill. I'll go jog. I'll go run for office. I'll go hit that homeless person on the way home. I'll go buy peaches. But then eventually you didn't do the task.
Buying peaches is ridiculous, especially when you have so many homeless people to hit on the way home. How often are you unable to play or engage in leisurely activities quietly?
Does that mean I'm like making sound effects? I think rarely. I think I can be quiet and play stuff.
That is an odd question.
It does sound like a little kid that's the caricature of ADHD. It's like he keeps making sound effects. He doesn't do his schoolwork. He's like just all over the place.
Even me, who claims to have a weird kind of Tourette's that is just a part of the normal condition, at least in Bill Burr's life, doesn't make noises while they're engaged in leisurely activities.
These are extreme ones. So I think these ones are there so that it highlights the people with lots of ADHD.
Yeah.
You're making sound effects while you're playing leisurely.
How often do you have difficulty waiting your turn, such as while waiting in line?
Easy. Some people do the thing where they give off a vibe. They kind of huff and puff. I don't even check my phone. I look at like Us Weekly, look at the gum, seeing what's going on there, seeing what new type of Reese's they've come out with. Like there's so much to look at in the line. Even if it's a boring place like the DMV, you just kind of force yourself to engage in a meditation.
I got to put myself down for a rarely. I would be a never, but with driving, I feel like driving kind of fits in that criteria.
Oh, maybe I'm a sometimes then. Okay. Often on the road, rarely when I'm not in a car. The car does something else.
The car does something else. Well, let's both put ourselves down for a rarely. How about?
Okay, but I don't know. Sometimes. I'll take the rarely.
Yeah, because that's a. First off, everyone is a lunatic when they're driving. And I've certainly been in the passenger seat where I'm like, oh, well, I feel a lot better about my disposition while driving. But a lot of people cannot handle a line, like a line for a store, a line for coffee, line at like a drive-through or anything. It's fun seeing someone rage out. Can't handle that. And I have zero problem with those lines whatsoever. Those lines, unless I'm just like running crazy late for something and I'm in the TSA line and it's an hour longer than it's supposed to be and I'm gonna miss a flight. It's like such a rare occasion. Usually I am super chill. I'm down to wait. I'm a waiter. I'm into waiting.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a good wait.
My impatience is with people, like people not getting things, not
understanding.
Yeah. That's my impatience. Not with like physical line type situations.
I was at a Lassen's once, which is like a fancy organic Silver Lake hipster Greenpeace grocery store, and the cash registers stopped working for a bit and they were trying to figure it out, so the lines froze and the line like just went all the way to the middle of the cereal aisle, and so many people were just like, can you believe this? But in my head I'm like, every single person in here is extremely privileged just for walking into this building and not shopping at the dollar store across the street.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't get to be upset while being in a fancy hipster organic grocery store. You just don't.
Yeah.
So I commend myself for being so temperate during that moment. I was looking around and judging the people who were being upset. I'm like, you guys should be cool like me. I am exercising gratitude right now internally, not huffing and puffing.
That is something to be proud of.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't go there often, but I was in there while that happened. So, and I did have items I was going to buy that cost more than they should.
Yeah, I huff and puff with like social media or like interactions or
that's
something
kind of
like
a car,
that.
isn't
Definitely
it?
not.
Because you're not in a car, you're not yourself, and you're also dealing with people who are not themselves. They are the car. And then in social media, you get in a car that is like your avatar, your account, and then you're up against these other cars, and it's all a big traffic jam, and everyone's a stupider version of themselves. So it's like, come on, get out of the fucking conspiracy lane, you fuck.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people say things in real life that like upset me sometimes, but yeah, I'm not a huff and puffer. I usually, yeah, I'm not a big huff and puffer. How often do you feel like you're on the go, acting as if you're driven by a motor? You're unable to be comfortable being still for an extended period of time, such as in a restaurant or meeting.
0. I can sit still. I can stay in bed all day. I can, maybe 0 to sometimes.
You're a never. Well, it's never, rarely, sometimes, and often. I'm gonna put down a rarely for myself. I've put you down for a never. Because it's like, I feel like never means is still like the bottom 25%. Split into 4. I think it's just poor choice of words. It should have just been 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
How often do you leave your seat in situations when remaining seated? Wait, I gotta read this again. How often do you leave your seat in situations when remaining seated is expected? So leaving your place in the office or workplace.
Rarely. I mean, we all have to go to the bathroom sometimes, but I don't get up and, this is funny. Like I had a meeting, or it's not that funny, but it is a story that I choose to tell. At Dynasty Typewriter, I was meeting with Jamie and Vanessa is like always on the go and like doing stuff. And in the middle of the meeting, she's like, I'm sorry. I need to finish this puzzle. So I'm still going to be listening and talking, but just the putt, and isn't even asking for permission, but just goes and starts finishing this giant jigsaw puzzle because like just has to be doing stuff. So like that would be someone that needs to get up and run around and has all that kinetic energy.
Yeah, people do that with their phone. You know what? I'm going to switch this and put... I still better do it rarely. I almost switched mine. After you told that story, I almost switched me from a rarely to a never. Because it's not that I never look at my phone, like out to eat or whatever, but I'm pretty damn good at not looking at my phone if I'm around people. I guess I do a pickleball or whatever. But if I'm out to eat with a friend or whatever else, yeah, I'm not on my phone.
Yeah.
And the phone's the easiest. Like jigsaw puzzles, sort of fucking ridiculous. But now it's also just kind of socially acceptable that everyone pulls their phone out too. So there's not even the same like social, judgment and rudeness attached to it. So people just feel very... It's kind of ridiculous. Don't you think it's like a hair sad when you go to a restaurant or something and there's just 3 people all just on their phones?
Yeah,
at a
but
table,
also we're
not talking with one another.
What's weird is that the sad is that there kind of isn't restaurants right now. I guess some restaurants are open, but we're still kind of closed off here. But counterpoint to that, I might be wrong with this, but the same couple that would just be on the phone and not engaging with each other, they might have been silent 30 years ago, just been sitting there and not speaking to each other. And then this way, at least they're doing that. But also it is more of a distraction, and it's a temptation to devolve into your worst self.
Yeah.
By going for the quick
if you're
fix.
playing a game with, like, if you're playing Words with Friends or something with your lady at a restaurant, like, all right, I feel like you can do that, but I don't know.
No, it is rude, though.
Yeah. How often do you blurt out an answer before a question has been completed? Completing another person's sentence, or can't wait your turn in a conversation. You're a patient one.
Yeah, but I do say the answer before it comes out, and this might just be in the context of the relationship. I'm trying to do it less, not because she says I should do it less, but I'm just catching myself.
Yeah,
like she's telling me a story, and it's like, I just heard the story about Molly Shannon, and then like before she even says it, I just go, oh, the airplane story, the one from when she was a kid, the one, and then it's like, no, it wasn't that one. It's a completely different story.
Yeah.
You don't have to jump in and guess that quick.
That's kind of being engaged, though. I don't know. I would rate you pretty low on this. You're not you're good on, I guess you,
if it's accepted
out on this show, but it's like, it's like, if you didn't, the show would suck.
That's true. In the context of on podcasts, I do try to keep it moving, and I think interruptions are more acceptable than in real life, just because I like them. I like interruptions.
I would put you pretty darn low.
Give me a rarely.
Okay, I'll give you a rarely.
Give me rare, not blue rare, just rare.
I think that I'm going to put myself down for a rarely. I think that Here We Are requires a great deal of attention. I'm usually like pretty tired after I finish a episode. And I feel like it's pretty mentally demanding. And I think that I let my guests talk quite a bit, though there's some episodes where I'm just like in a different mood and I butt in quite a bit more, but I don't know. I think I have that balance right. And definitely in real life, I just don't talk that much in social situations. So I'm like mostly just listening to whatever. And I'm not a good listener, like one-on-one, like engaged in the conversation, but I am a good listener, like people watching, eavesdropping, and like being mindful of the situation for sure.
Because
like,
you're taking
really
it in.
good.
It's not being sold to you.
Yeah.
So the other day I was getting off the bus, but it wasn't the bus I normally take. And it wasn't even the stop I normally take. And I told you about my friend Sharon, right? Not that Sharon, the other Sharon. Are you listening? Are you listening to my story about Sharon and the bus stop on the other stop that I took? You're not listening at all.
I think we're not going to get an A+ on this. I think that I'm worried I might not even have ADHD anymore.
Isn't that funny? It's
These
an
last
ego.
few questions.
We've talked about how the ego doesn't care if you're the best or the worst. It just wants to be the most. So when you tell yourself like, I'm the best, that's egoic. But also saying, I suck, I'm the worst, I'm going to kill myself, that's also very egoic. So like the ego kind of wants us to have ADHD and be like, yes, we got it. We're, despite this illness, this disorder, we still managed to climb out of bed and fight the good fight because we have taken on this burden that a regular person doesn't have. A regular person just loves waking up, staying in the flow and motion, writing everyone back, and is just all smiles. But we are these like night warriors filled with pathos.
I definitely think of myself as a night warrior. It is nice to be mindful. It is good to know yourself and know your patterns, especially the ones that maybe you want to break or the ones that you want to optimize. When I'm feeling good and I'm in a group, I'm like, we were talking. I've been feeling pretty good over the last few days. I had a rough like month or so, just mood wise. And it happens like a month or two straight sometimes. And I got hit with it recently, and I just started feeling like it was moving. Just the weather in my mind was just moving on. And that's also something good to be aware of, those positive. It's like, okay, well, I think so now I'll be able to check off a few more things than I can normally. Like I was like, well, I can't commit to anything this week because I'm so fucking miserable that I'll just bail on people or, whatever. And so
do you bail on Here We Are guests?
Very rarely. Sometimes I just get so in my head and I'm just so sick of feeling stupid all of the time that I just can't. Like, I just can't feel stupid for these 2 hours.
Well, I mean,
I know that I will.
I mean, you're going to have that feeling if every episode you get like an actual scientist specialized in a new field. And then you're like, oh, how come I don't know enough about neuroscience? How come I don't know enough about mosquito dicks? Oh, I suck.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's amazing.
You shouldn't know as much as any of those people in those fields.
Right. Yeah, and I know that, but just some days it's just like, oh my God, I just can't handle finding out that I'm wrong about everything all over again.
That's what this show is for, to get dumb a little bit. And then I'm like here not knowing what Smalabama is, and I think that Stephen Hawking was a saint instead of a man that gets beaten by women. The biggest sin of all, to get beaten by your language device's inventor's ex-wife.
How often do you feel restless, like you want to get out and do something?
Sometimes.
Okay. All right. That defied my expectation.
You thought I was never?
I thought you were rarely, maybe.
No,
but,
sometimes I want to get up and like I just go walk to the convenience store, see if they've got energy Coke. They don't. All my favorite energy drinks always just disappear. Juiced Monster drink, vanilla cafe Soylent, tropical Red Bull, energy Coke. You can't find them anywhere. I swear they're watching me and they're like, what kind of energy drinks does this asshole like? It's going to cost us a lot of money, but let's take them all away. Let's take them all away from the market because they're so yummy. Why would they take them away?
That is strange. You must like peculiar ones that no one else likes.
Yeah, my taste buds are shaped weird or something.
How often do you fidget with or tap your hands or feet or squirm in your seat?
Oh, give me 100, Alex.
Really?
Like, if you look at the video of this, you're pretty still, and I'm like I swivel, I move this. Occasionally there's like these things which I'm like doing paradiddles on my knees. If you put a piece of paper in my hand, it becomes a crumpled little compact ball.
Wow.
I'm very hands, like it's everything I do. I kind of realize like it's all hands, like instruments, drawing, like everything is a little hand thing. So I keep them doing stuff. So I'm pretty fidgety.
I guess that doesn't surprise me too much. I just have never observed it. I'm going to put me down for a never.
Oh, a never fidge.
I might have my first never. And I
cool,
say that
congrats.
Not meaning never, but on the lower as a 1 out of 4. Congrats.
Yeah, your first never, or your first rarely.
How often do you find yourself talking excessively?
Never, rarely. I don't know.
Yeah,
rarely.
No.
I'm sure I go over a limit occasionally. I got to put rarely.
It's so hard to judge because anyone that's listened to me would probably put me down for an often.
But that's the
but
show,
when I'm
though.
not recording something, it's like I don't talk. Like, I am not a chatty person. Although sometimes, like when I open, like I'll see people, you know, if I'm having some drinks or something like that, and then I just start going on about personality research. I think that's more of their fault for not being interested in how life works than mine for sharing a quick 2-minute, because it is crazy. Like, I just got done listening to a 3-hour long fucking football conversation where everyone was saying the exact same thing, which is the exact same thing that they were saying 30 years ago. And then I bust out some amazing thing about how our perception about out groups changes when there's like more diseases and parasites in the environment.
Did you just call the opposite group an out group? Or no, not the out group. The opposite team, sorry. Yeah, they're talking about football teams. You're like, did you just call the Raiders an out group?
Yeah, exactly. And I have like a 2 or 3 minute window where some people will listen to me, and I can see it's like they're trying, but they just can't handle it. And
some people don't find interesting stuff interesting. Some people love the least interesting thing.
Yeah. Yes. All right, I'm gonna put myself down for a rarely.
Yeah, you're rarely.
I could see people not agreeing with that, and that's fine. But I'm gonna give myself a rarely, and I'm trying to be as honest with myself as I can.
Yeah, and people means people watching podcasts, so that's only getting a certain slice of you.
Mm-hmm. How often do you interrupt or intrude on others, such as butting into a conversation or talking over what others are doing?
I think rarely outside of podcasts.
Yeah, I would put you down for a rarely. I'm like, people have heard me on podcasts might not like, I almost didn't talk for the first 18 years of my life. Like, if you ask anybody that knew me, I was like the most quiet kid.
Quiet kid that climbs stuff.
Yeah. Were several of the symptoms present prior to age 12? Yes or no?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put down a big yes. The last yes or no. Do the symptoms appear in at least 2 or more settings, at home and school?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Get results. You are a possible. You have a 30 out of 58. Based on your responses to this adult ADHD screening quiz, you may or may not have attention deficit disorder.
Cool.
People who have answered similarly to you sometimes qualify for diagnosis ADHD or ADD. Why are they saying? Now they're using both like they're two different things, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Some people with scores similar to yours have sought professional treatment for this concern. Others have not.
Isn't that saying nothing? Some people have sought treatment. Others have not. That's just not actually pointing out something.
Yeah, that's not a thing at all. And mine is, it would be nice to get an actual official thing, but it would, then we couldn't do it in real time and everything else. So you got a 30 out of 58. I got a 35 out of 58, which similar. I'm surprised by. That's we're both pretty similar, and I'm way lower than I would have thought. If I would have known, if you would have asked me ahead of this, out of 58, how many do you think that you'll score? I would have said 50, in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm surprised. Maybe I'm Maybe I'm fixed.
Intensity
Maybe I'm
bias. You always think you're a lot of something when in fact you might be a little bit. Yeah, because getting in the 50s, it probably really needs treatment, or you're highly dysfunctional in your work. But I don't think you'd be able to produce shows and like also be the host of shows and play pickleball and stuff.
I do a fuckload of things regularly. I haven't over the last month. Well, even on a bad month, I still keep all my shows going and still like research a lot of new things. And yeah, I don't know. I've also carved out a career for myself where I sit around thinking and learning the things that I'm the most interested in.
Yeah, we got to get
that's a cheat code.
We got to get Greek philosophy robes and like represent this time, which is the fall of this Roman Empire, like as being the boys of philosophy during this, at least for one shot.
Yeah,
just be the philosophical robe people.
Yeah,
why do anything?
I'll get a robe. I don't know. So it turns out that we may or may not do benefit from doing something about our ADHD. That's what we learned from this episode.
You may or may not.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I don't think it matters one way or another what we are. And I don't even think that the listener would care that much like where we fall exactly. But I think that for most people, just to hear the questions and to hear them discussed and think about where they fall on them is where the fun of some of this stuff is. So I think that I'm going to find some more like little tests like this that we can do.
Yeah, quiz episodes are fun.
Yeah, these are real fun because we just had someone on YouTube recommend one recently. It was for I forget what it was, but it was a very good idea. So yeah, these are fun episodes, and so yeah,
would it be funny to take a sexuality one because they say sexuality is a spectrum, and like see how gay or straight you are.
Yeah, we should find out how gay or straight we are. Because it's so weird because in my mind, well, no, I wouldn't. I don't think I'm 58 out of 58 straight because I think I'm like super comfortable with, well, but maybe that makes you more straight.
Yeah,
I don't know.
These words have no meaning when you think about it, because there's that Ron White joke where he says that everyone is a little gay, and I'll prove it to you. Like when you watch porn, do you like men with little tiny peckers?
Yeah.
And then the person answers, no, I like big, hard throbbing. Oh.
But that's mirror neurons, and that's the same as, wanting to be the guy catching the football in the end zone and that sort of thing. And but yeah, I'm super comfortable with myself. That's for sure. But
what if they're taking guys, they take a woman that's like very feminine and then they start changing the features and make them more into a boy, like BOI with an I. So like the hair gets short, the voice gets lower, and then you start like putting masculine features on it to where the other side of it becomes Tom Selleck or whatever the mustache masculine guy is. I don't know where
the line would be for me, but I think it would change. I think it would hit pretty quickly in terms of what I'm actually attracted to. I actually think that I have a little bit snobbish tastes in females. Probably I've had some good mates in my life.
You want diplomas on the wall and books on the shelf.
Yeah, and super attractive typically. So it's, I don't...
Not me. I like very, very conventionally and unconventionally attractive people. Like the ugliest you can find from every angle, and they've got to be dumb as a bag of rocks. No books,
it's
no
weird
diplomas.
That you like that.
No, just kidding. I would never.
Yeah.
And neither should you.
Well, yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, we'll find some more tests. I mean, there's a million tests like this that we can take, and probably ones that I know a lot more about than actually. That was not bad. I knew a few things about ADHD. We started off the episode pretty strong.
Yeah, I think you're being
Might have
hard
been
on yourself there. I think you know
a little
enough
bit
to
of
fill.
helpful info.
Yeah,
it worked out. I was worried that I wouldn't. But yeah, well, good luck if you have ADHD. I gotta say, I'm just as a rule of thumb, any medication for your brain that you take every day, like, you better know that you absolutely need it. Or like, yeah, of course, like seizure medication or something like that, sure. But it's still, wow.
Tread lightly.
That's why I'm not even like into microdosing. I haven't tried it, and maybe I'm being closed-minded about it, but I don't like the idea of just flat, like, baseline chemically altering a brain, like, every day.
It's too.
I don't mind some fucking
complex.
throwing some peaks in there and everything, but yeah, it's too complex.
And as much as we love, talking about how modern medicine is good and that saves our ass all the time, and like stepping backwards,
the brain's a different thing. Yeah. The brain's fucking complicated, and it's like it. I mean, there's certainly there. Just like there's a difference between vaccines and antibiotics. Like, antibiotics are like this one size fits all. Also eliminating probiotics or something. Much like chemo isn't. The idea is hopefully to make it more target specific over time. Because now it kills a bunch of other cells too, and is absolutely brutal on people. And wouldn't it be nice if you just got to those cancer cells? There's that's like 1,000-fold when it comes to the brain. Just like, well, we'll just dump serotonin in it, or we'll just dump dopamine in it. Like, you do that for a night, or to get yourself out of a situation, or to have fun or something, but every day,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, and it acclimates.
And by the way, a lot of scientists are skeptical as well of those very things. But I'm sure that's not to say hop off your ADHD. And I've heard people have amazing reports of like their whole life changing once they went on Adderall or Ritalin or whatever, and everything just flipping around and going better for them. So it's possible I'm the closed-minded one, but that's just my little
just be
take on
cautious. I think it's just a thing of if you're on the fence about it, maybe you don't need it, but if it does help, then yeah, take it.
All right. Well, yeah, super fun episode. By the way, let's see, at the time that this is recording, I think that we recorded a bunch in the bank, so sorry if this information is slightly off, but we made episode 21 of Mind Under Art, the weekly series that we do for Patreon only. We had an extra long episode, and it was super fun, and we just wanted more people to hear it, and we wanted people to give people a sneak preview. And so if you go to episode 21, so if you go to the YouTube channel, because we're also looking for more YouTube subscribers, you can see that full episode. So for those of you that have thought about joining Patreon but haven't pulled the trigger yet, and maybe you want a preview, or maybe you're broke, can't afford it right now, it's at least one extra really awesome fun episode that we did, talking about small incremental gains and ninjas and buttholes and a bunch of fun stuff.
Mainly the latter. Latter, not a ladder, but yeah.
And we have a bonus monthly episode each week, and And yeah, so that's, and merch at Mind Under Matter.
mindunderpod.com.
Mind Under Pod. Sorry.
Mind Under
.com.
Matter Pod also. But Mind Under Pod is so like quick.
mindunderpod.com to check out the merch, which has recently been updated. So you want to go on there and check out all the new stuff on there. And thank you guys so much. Until next time.
Keep on salivating, honeys. Ding. Ding. Whoops.